are MJ Movie Reviews back again with an on-the-fly movie review of Child's Play, which is, as us old folks know, is a reimagining, reboot, rip-off, lack of creativity of the original film called Child's Play from 1988. Now, this is all of that 1988 original film. I'm not gonna go overly long with this review like I usually do, but I'm gonna cut right to the chase. It was okay. I really did not think it was a bad film. It was fun, short, easily digestible, gory, and occasionally fun horror film. There was some of it that was funny. I genuinely did think some of it was funny. It was some of it where I literally laughed out loud. It was funny. And they went all out for the gore, and it was definitely a couple moments that were uncompromising, which I thought was good. And it definitely was more gore along the lines of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 gore, 1986, where it's just like that really like gory with comedy mixed into it, and I thought that worked very well for the film. And I like the fact that they did try to tie in and carry on the whole, because I'm going to digress a little bit, because the big hook of the original Child's Play, the original film, was that during the 1980s there was a gigantic boom in commercialism and marketing and all that stuff, and particularly for children who were my age in the 80s, who were little kids. They had these My Buddy dolls. You can find the commercials, they're still up here on YouTube. And I remember I wanted the My Buddy doll very bad. My mother never got it for me. She got Teddy Ruxpin instead. Those of us 30-something, 40-somethings know all about Teddy Ruxpin. But Teddy Ruxpin, My Buddy, they were all part of that, every shelf you go in Toys R Us or Children's Palace or KB Toy Store or whatever, there was always a Teddy Ruxpin or My Buddy or whatever on the shelf. And that was a big hook of the original Child's Play from 1988, is that they were kind of mocking and making fun of that commercialism and marketing and stuff that they were feeding to us children of the 80s at that time. And this movie tries to carry on a little bit of that. But now let me get into the negatives. Herein lies the problem. It's not the 80s anymore. This is a totally different generation. So that whole boom of that time period doesn't really make much sense now. You know what I mean? Because we've got streaming, we've got all sorts of avenues for all sorts of marketing. So it just, as back in the 80s, there was only one outlet, which was your box, your TV Nintendo, the cereal, or whatever little ways that they tried to feed us 80s children all those messages. So rebooting that first film, it kind of doesn't make sense. And I want to be clear, this is not Child's Play. This is not Child's Play. It's not even the same thing. First one, it was a serial killer, voodoo killer who possessed a doll. This one, it's an AI robot / mini Terminator and a doll. And I do like the changes. I think it works for this film, but I think flat out this movie should have went right over there on the Blumhouse, and it shouldn't have been called Child's Play. I don't know, Killer Doll Escape, Cyborg Killer Doll, something. But if it wouldn't have been Child's Play, it would have just been fine as a gory little cheap robotic killer doll on the loose thriller. And I think it works like that, you know what I mean? Because it's not Chucky. Mark Hamill is the voice of Chucky. He does really good, but I agree with my buddy Pizzaz's assessment, is that really Mark Hamill, who's so fantastic at voice work, he could do this role in his sleep, and he's not really given that much to chew on. Kind of towards the end of the movie, he's able to play with the inflections of his voice and get a little bit more sinister. So towards the end of the movie, he starts going, and they're all die. He kind of starts doing that stuff, and it's like, okay, I'm with this. This is creepy. Cool, let's do it. But really, Brad Dourif, this will never. First of all, this will never get sequelized like the original series, and decades from now, nobody's gonna remember this movie. The Brad Dourif child Chucky will always be the pinnacle. There's no way this movie can't compete. It just can't. Taken on its own as its own little weird kind of AI cyborg killer movie in a doll, okay, it works fine. But they've already lost because they called it Child's Play. If they would have did their own thing, they would have been a little bit better. But Brad Dourif, who Brad Dourif and Mark Hamill are equal levels of talent. They're both extremely great character actors who can bring the sinister and the theatrical to a whole nother level. So that's not saying one is better than the other, but Brad Dourif has been at it for 30 years now. And he is the character of Chucky, and he is the embodiment of that character. He was just given more to play with. Here there's not much given, but I do like that this film does pay some homages to the 80s. I like the fact that Chucky, the new rebooted Chucky, learns to be a killer from watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, 1986, which I think is just hysterical. Now, do I buy the fact that kids this age in this time period would be watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2? No, I do not. That's how I know probably the people who wrote the film are probably somewhere in my age or a little bit older, because we all used to rent that thing from the video store and watch it on cable, or some the older 50-somethings saw it in the theater. But I don't particularly buy that kids this age would be watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 unless they're hardcore, devout horror fans. I just don't think that era of the 80s translates to this new generation, so I don't buy that part. But it was a nice homage to the time period that this movie was trying to rip off. So I think that just lies the problem. Those are my problems with the movie. But all in all, it was okay. Not terrible, not great. But really, end of the day, it just shouldn't have been Child's Play. Period. So that's my review of the Child's Play reboot. This will probably be the last. Actually, there won't be a sequel to this film. I'm calling it right now. There won't be a sequel to this movie. Orion, whatever that old studio is from back in the day, that put out the original RoboCop movies. They're not going to put out another one. They can't. And I will say that, do I think the direct-to-DVD Chucky movies are better? I never saw Curse of Chucky. I got to go home and watch that. This is better than the parts of Seed of Chucky that I saw. Is this better than Bride of Chucky? I don't know. I was never particularly a fan of Bride of Chucky. I really kind of only like the original 3 movies with toss up between 1 and 2, and then 3 is kind of a very, very far distant behind. But either way, that's my review of the Child's Play reboot. RMJ Movie Reviews, hit the thumbs up, leave comments down below, ring the bell, share the video, and RMJ Movie Reviews, I'll see you folks soon.